Welcome to the Honest Hounds podcast, a place where we shine a spotlight on our wonderful members and their lives with their dogs. We'll be diving into the inspiring, the thought-provoking, and the sometimes emotional journeys that we go on with our four-legged friends. So sit back and relax and be inspired by the journeys that present in front of you. And if you need a community from anywhere in the world for you and your dog, we're absolutely here.
This is an episode that I have been really excited about. When I was mapping out who I wanted to speak to, you guys were so high on my list. So a little bit of a different take today because we've got two of you. So two is such a great way to tell a story, and so many people will be listening who have got partners who are very much part of the dynamic that they've had to navigate the complex world of having a dog with. So I think this is going to be a really, really great conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. There's so many topics that I want to cover, but the first one obviously is, who are you both and who is your dog?
I'm Victoria.
I'm John.
And our dog is Albus, who is a 6-year-old white Labrador, who we've been on a bit of a journey with.
Yes.
Since we got him 6 years ago, pre-pandemic. So it's, I think in the dog training world, we tend to come across younger dogs. And therefore kind of the pandemic obviously had a big role to play. But Albus we got like 18 months before the pandemic.
Yeah, so we got Albus in September, October 2018, literally straight after we'd been married. So we came back from honeymoon, had a week, and then got thrown into the depths of puppy.
Yeah.
Which was great fun. It really was a great way to start married life, to be fair.
Yeah. And he's your first dog, isn't he?
He's my proper first dog, yeah.
Whereas I'd had Labradors before. So I thought that I knew what was coming. Because I'd been through that before. We had a chocolate lab called Samson, and I kind of thought, oh well, yep, know this drill, know how to do it, and off we went. And yeah, to be fair, for the first 12 months, you know, typical, as we say, Disney dog, lovely puppy, really cheeky and playful, but would do anything you asked of him, really intelligent, loved to train, loved to do tricks, loved to go out running and playing ball and fetch and all that kind of stuff. And then about 12 months in, we noticed his gait wasn't quite right, and he was flaring his elbows and not kind of walking straight, especially down hills. It was really obvious. So we went to the vet and said, can you just have a look at this, please? And the vet said, oh, well, we just think he'll grow out of it. It'll be fine. And it got worse. And then we had a couple of instances where I'd be playing with him and I'd be near his front legs, and he would kind of whip round and not growl, but kind of make vocalizations that wasn't something he was comfortable with. And that kind of cemented for us, isn't it, that we needed to get him seen. So we went to see a different vet, a musculoskeletal specialist, and he was diagnosed with elbow dysplasia in both front legs, which was a shock to us because we'd been to a kennel club assured breeder. We'd been really careful. We'd asked for the elbow scores. We'd asked for all the good stuff that you get told to do. And the vet said, Matt is going to have major surgery on both front legs. He's not going to be able to walk long distances for 3 months. He's probably not going to be able to be active like a, working Labrador ought to be ever. You're going to have to monitor him and watch him and be careful for the rest of his life. So that was a big enough shock, wasn't it?
Yeah, that were a step change in sort of his life. That first 3 months after the surgery, we were kind of confined to one room, sleeping downstairs because he couldn't do the stairs.
We couldn't hear him because he was on painkillers and all kinds of diuretics. So he was crying at 2 a.m. to go out, and we couldn't hear him upstairs. So we lived on a sofa bed in this room, actually, in our dining room, for 3 months prior to the pandemic hitting, which was definite test of our very new marriage, having to sleep on a camp bed downstairs together. And there was a couple of nights, wasn't there, where you
I had
threw
to
the
sneak
towel
up
in.
upstairs and get a proper night's sleep.
That sounds
So
Yeah.
it was a challenge, but as I say, it was a real step change for Al, because obviously he'd not known anything different before that, and sort of world was very different after his operation. And then again, like I said, going through COVID, we were actively avoiding other dogs and other people walking around, and that was a big alien thing for him, not going near other dogs and other people.
And then I think that's when we started to notice his behaviour change. So instead of the kind of happy-go-lucky puppy who would, do anything that you asked of him, he's just having a little box. There's some noise outside. Yes, you might want to hear it.
I'm here too, guys.
It's like, yep, you telling my story. So he then became quite reclusive. He didn't want fuss. He didn't want touch, which, looking at it from outside in, you've just been through a major surgery. You don't know what's happened. You're in a lot of pain. You don't want to be touched. But that then persisted. So he used to jump up on the couch with us on an evening and snuggle down and sleep. And that turned into, if he was laid next to us on the couch, he would growl. If we moved, he wanted peace and quiet with no one moving. And if you moved, he would turn, growl, and snap at you. And we kind of brushed it off as something to do with his surgery, and that he'd come round eventually. And just to kind of help him through that phase, that we managed that behaviour, didn't we?
Yeah.
It got to the point where we couldn't have him sleeping upstairs with us, because we would move in the night and he would growl and snap. There wasn't any biting, it was growling and snapping at that stage. And we just managed it. We just thought, well, he'll get over it if we treat him kindly and we're nice to him. He'll kind of come out of it and it'll be fine. And that didn't happen. So it came to a head, didn't it, when we went on that holiday?
2021. So we took 3 days and sort of snuck off for a quick weekend, as sort of COVID restrictions were lifting, and we left Albus with Victoria's parents, and they took him to the static caravan in York for a weekend.
Which they'd done before, and we'd not had a problem at all.
We gave him a little heads up: don't make eye contact, don't upset him on the sofa, just leave him to rest. And when we got back, we found out Albus had not been his best behaved, unfortunately. I'd given him a bit of a rough time.
He'd gone from my dad, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And he'd gone from my mum. My mum hadn't heeded me when I'd said leave him to sleep, and she'd been in bed with him, and she'd moved, and he'd turned and was about 2 inches away from her face, growling at her. And my mum's 4'11" and weighs about as much of a bag of sugar, and that was a hard stop for me. That was absolutely not this. And it kind of was a wake-up call for us, how much we'd been managing his behaviour and thinking, well, it will come to an end eventually. It's a phase. And it was a big wake-up call for us, wasn't it?
Massive wake-up call. And he sort of, he let us know when we came back as well, didn't he? It really escalated at that point, where it was definitely telling us he wasn't happy, whether we'd been away or something else. But the attitude that we were getting off him had taken another level.
He growled at me, and I told him no, and it went up another level, to the point where I grabbed his collar, and he was laid on the floor at this point, and I just held him down until he stopped growling at me, because I didn't know what else to do, because I'd not seen this behaviour from him at all, really. We'd had quick growls and quick snaps, but nothing sustained. And at that point,
That's probably
he hadn't been asleep, he hadn't rested, he hadn't been eating. All these kinds of things that I now look back on and see, at that time, we just thought there's something seriously wrong here. We think that, either there's something medically wrong with him, or he's become something we don't understand. And I think at one point we even considered whether it was something like rage syndrome, where dogs just flick a switch and have uncontrolled rage, which can't be cured. So we were thinking, well, this puppy that we brought into our lives we're gonna have to put him to sleep, because we can't predict this behavior, where it's going to go, how far it's going to go. And me being me, I wasn't happy to take that route without exhausting all other options. So that's when we started trainer searches, wasn't it?
Yeah, we realised at this point, this is when we started to need extra help. We couldn't do this on our own. So I think we got him assessed by Peter, who's the vet that did the musculoskeletal work, and he was very quick to say, well, look, this is a behavioural thing. It's not a physiological thing. It's certainly not rage syndrome, which was partly a relief, because obviously we didn't want to be going down that route. We certainly didn't want him undergoing any more treatment or surgeries, but it did leave a big question mark. Well, how are we going to tackle this if this is a behavioural issue?
And I think it's such an interesting one, and you guys have got the kind of the pain aspect of it, which makes everything so much more complex. And I think that when we start with a dog who has been really happy-go-lucky and absolutely fine, and then we add in pain, which then obviously leads to a huge shift in behavior, I think it's then so understandable that you get stuck in this space of, well, there must be more to it. And it's so interesting that you've mentioned rage syndrome. I've had quite a few conversations recently. It's obviously that it's kind of it does happen in spaniels quite a lot, but not as much as the internet is now leading us to believe. And so I feel like we're in this really interesting place now where it's almost like the TikTok diagnosed anxiety, right? We all see one person on TikTok that has this condition, and therefore, because our dog is showing this behavior, it must be that too. And that's such an easy thing to go, we'll just put it in this neat little box and it must be that thing. But actually being able to go, as I think you guys then did, actually, this has crept in over a long time with all these little bits that have added up. And then we take him out of the situation that he's familiar in. We take your guys' excellent management away, and we add people that aren't reading all those micro signals that stop him from escalating, and they come in and go, oh, well, he's just fine. And then we get that escalation. But to us, it's like, but hang on a minute, I'm not aware that I'm avoiding and managing to this level. So then this behavior feels completely out of the blue, whereas actually it was always creeping in along. We just weren't aware of it. And so I think it's such a story of, it's the kind of tale that we're hearing now. And I was exactly the same. And obviously without the pain, but with the behavior, is how do we get people to spot those little bits and take them seriously, so that when it gets to here, we don't jump for that extreme condition that then tends to lead to euthanasia. It's complex.
I think one thing that we had was we were seeing it, but no one else was, because a lot of Albus's problems are in the house. Outside, I get loose lead walking, recall, will do anything I ask of him. And he's great with strangers. Like, he will go up and have a fuss, and will have the attention and likes it, and then we'll walk away. So I remember a conversation with my dad, and me saying to my dad came into my house and sat down on the sofa next to Albus, and I said, look, don't touch him, because he's not going to tolerate it. You need to just leave him alone. And my dad's a big dog person, and he was like, oh, I think you're over-exaggerating it, Victoria. He's fine. There's nothing wrong. I said, right, well, I'm just going to nip to the loo, and then we were going out. I said, right, I'm just going to nip to the loo, and then we'll get off. And I'd literally just set foot in the bathroom, and I heard Albus explode downstairs. growling, snapping, etc., etc. And when I came down, I said to my dad, "What did you do?" And he went, "Oh, I just rubbed him. I was just sat next to him and I rubbed him." Now, to normal people, normal dogs, that's totally fine. But to Albus, that wasn't. And my dad did not believe me until that happened to him. And then he was like, "Oh God, right, I totally see where you're coming from. Like, my goodness, wow." And it's that kind of realization of, yeah, we've been managing this quite a lot. I'd not realized it until, someone outside of the bubble lets you know.
And that's the bit, isn't it? Everything gets smaller and more isolated, and we have people over less, and we just won't do that. And you have those 10-step procedures to doing the simple things. And I think the more that we see it, the more you kind of go, oh, it is the norm. We do it. No one would ever sign up to getting a dog that was like, well, they can sit on the sofa with you, but just don't touch it. Just don't look at it. That's having a pet dog, just don't poke the bear. And I think we all get ourselves kind of in these situations where we're just going, oh, well, this is the norm. And especially when you've had that pain and the surgery, and, oh, well, if he just gets better, he'll grow out of it. Oh, and if it just, once he heals and he gets confident again and COVID goes away, we're not going to have as much of a problem. But I guess let's go back on the journey of the story. So you were told it wasn't rage syndrome. That's kind of going, this is no longer pain. This is something that's crept in with behavior. What happens next?
Next is sort of a 3 to 6 month period of trialing a couple of different trainers. And that's where we started to learn the difference between a dog trainer and a dog behaviouralist. And it's obvious now. Back then it wasn't quite so obvious. And we made a couple of mistakes along the way. The first one came to us through Instagram, I think. And sort of the initial bubble of dog trainers on Instagram. And this guy was local to us. Through the Instagram lens, looks shiny and fancy and capable of sorting out our problems. So Victoria engaged with him online and we got an appointment booked. And it turned out to be a real shock for us. The guy took about 15 minutes looking at Albus and 3 hours dissecting Victoria and myself. But the advice that we were given was completely inappropriate, both for Albus and for us. The entire situation was just totally way off.
Hey, dissect you guys. That's really interesting because obviously a lot of what we do focuses on the human aspect and being able to get the human kind of on side, understanding their dog and being able to work with them. But when you use the word dissect, that's really interesting. A slightly different dynamic.
We were, well, I guess the more unkind way of putting it, Jesse, was we were crucified by this guy. He basically put the entire blame on us that we'd done this to our dog, and
What?
we needed to tough up and show him who's boss. So.
We were soft. He was quite critical of me, particularly. I think because I'm not going to bring gender into it, but I do think there was an element of you're a woman, you're not strong enough. You're not being enough.
Hold my beer. Do you know what I do for work?
It was kind of a bit like, oh, okay, you've got a stereotypical lineage of a dog mum in your head, and you aren't reading the person in front of you. You're not listening to what we're saying. But he trained protection dogs. So his advice was, I'd wait till he does it again, and then I'd punch him in the face until he submits.
Wow.
Which, for us, there's no. is the only response to that, which is polite enough for a podcast.
I'm sure that wasn't appearing on the shiny Instagram.
Joe went near the shiny Instagram, and essentially he took Albus out of the car, walked him around for 15 minutes, as John said, said there's nothing wrong with this dog, and then proceeded to tell us where we were at fault, which I'm more than open to saying that it is, my responsibility as a dog owner. But on top of that, then saying what wonderful things he'd done with other dogs and getting his mallies out and showing what his mallies could do. And there just wasn't that engagement with us as a couple and Albus in particular. So we paid quite a lot of money for that, and left feeling no more empowered to make decisions than we were when we walked in. So
we came away as well thinking, it put a lot of doubt in our minds. Is it us? This guy, is some of it where he's talking sense? Or are we just completely blind to all this? Are we missing this? Our confidence was completely rocked by that guy, weren't it?
And at a time where everything is going to be so tough anyway, because you're living with an aggressive dog, you're living in a dangerous situation, which is so hard when you're a couple trying to stay on the same page. So you've got all of these layers, and then someone comes in and goes, oh, by the way, you're the problem, the dog's fine. So we've got gaslighting at 100%, which is great. So it's quite, by that point, your mental health has probably taken a nosedive as well.
yeah, I beg your French. Well, at that point, I was suffering from quite a lot of anxiety anyway. Just in a general sense. But that just ratcheted up a notch, and it was second guessing everything we were doing with him, second guessing us and our dynamic and what we could do to help. So, as often happens, the pendulum swung completely the other way, and we heard about our positive and the kind of training movement around just working on a positive basis, and having had someone advise us that punching the dog in the face was perfectly acceptable, we became, all right, well, maybe we should just go down the R+ route and see an R+ trainer and see what the R+ trainer says, and whether there's anything that we can do from that perspective, because that sounds much nicer, it sounds much cuddlier, it sounds like I'm being kinder to the dog, it sounds like I'm putting his welfare first. So let's go down that route and see where we get to. And the trainer we saw didn't want to meet us at home, wanted to meet us in a field and see Albus out and about, which, as I've said earlier, he is perfectly fine out and about. He doesn't have issues. He will do whatever I ask. So we were put through our paces with the kind of engagement with the dog. Is he loose lead walking? Is he giving a sit? Is he giving pause? Is he doing what you want? Yes. And she was just completely at a loss and didn't know what to do. She just said, keep him under threshold. Don't let him get stressed. Just the classic things that you hear people talk about. Just kind of, don't stress him out. You're being really cruel to him, stressing him out. So, if he wants to stay on the sofa, just leave him be. Let him do that. Don't disturb him. Let sleeping dogs lie and all that kind of stuff. So, yet again, we were confused because, well, that's what we've been doing, but it's not improving it. And how do we improve it? I don't want to have to tread on eggshells around my dog. So we then we just reached an absolute dead end, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we struggled on for about 3 months, 6 months, just managing. And the next thing we looked at was medical. So we went for castration. Because in the meantime, just by the nature of what we both do, we were both doing reading around on the subject, and there was a suggestion that actually, if it is aggression, testosterone may be involved, and therefore castration might help. So we went and spoke to our vet, and our vet said, yeah, totally could help. We can do that straight away. We're happy to book you in. And I tend to question what people tell me, not in a disrespectful way, but I like to make my own mind up. I like to read around the subject. And one of the things we'd been concerned about with Albus is whether some of this was fear aggression, in inverted commas, or whether he was anxious and that's what was causing the reactions. So we wanted to make sure that by castrating him, we wouldn't make that, if it was anxiety and it was fear aggression, that we wouldn't make that worse, because there's some literature online that suggested castration could increase fear aggression. So we went for the supralorin implant because we thought that's reversible. If we do see an uptick in behaviour, we can extract the supralorin implant, and we totally reverse the effects of chemical castration. So we went for that, didn't we?
It turned out to actually be a really good thing. There were some bumps along the way with the implant because it increases the testosterone periodically for about a week, 2 weeks in its first when it's first implanted. So
that was a really hard time.
that was a difficult 2 weeks because his behaviour became almost unmanageable, like it had been the first time it erupted. Well,
I couldn't be in the same room as him
Yeah.
because he would just fixate on me and growl, bark, snap. And at one point, he cornered me in our conservatory. He wasn't muzzle trained at this point because, again, the Albus trainer, it was, oh, that's cruel, that's cruel. And he cornered me in the conservatory and I couldn't get hold of him. And he jumped up, and that's the first time he'd ever put teeth on me. And he didn't bite, as in he didn't clamp down, but he wrapped his teeth around my bicep and pulled to get my attention because I'd been told to turn away from him if he kicked off. And when I turned around and gave him the attention, he settled. But that was that was the worst we've ever seen him when we put the implant in initially.
That must have been a huge moment of, oh my goodness, what is is this the right thing? And we've had all of this confusion from all of these trainers, and now have we, quote unquote, done the wrong thing again? So you guys must have just been slowly just getting more and more overwhelmed with this situation. To then be in a room with your dog and essentially not be safe is just such an overwhelming experience,
wasn't it?
Yeah, it got me scared, definitely. You know, I was going out, returning to the office at this point. After COVID, you were still at home with Al, and it did leave question marks in my mind. What's going to happen if I'm not there? It's always been easy to manage him when there's two of us in the past. That has changed recently. But yeah, setting fear off in me at this point in the, where's it going to end, so to speak.
And that then, I think for us, was a huge tension because I was committed to seeing this through and doing my utmost to help Al. And I think at this point, the frustration was just another level between the two of us because I kept saying, you can't shout at him, you can't get hold of him, you can't grab him because he doesn't understand. And John was saying, well, what do I do? This dog's basically attacking my wife. Attacking it's strange because he's never actually bitten, as in, the classic teeth marks, kind of drawn blood and clamping down. But to John, seeing a dog with his teeth bared coming towards me,
there's an animalistic sort of instinctive reaction to that sort of behaviour, and you just find yourself doing whatever you need to do to get the situation either calm down or back to being safe.
Well, and it's the moment itself, isn't it, where you say there is that real physical risk, but it's the emotional turmoil that comes after that as well, which is just exhausting. So when you're never knowing when that's coming or what are the little bits that set him off or what's going to be the right kind of thing to do in this moment. You must have just all been kind of constantly walking on eggshells, and he obviously is very attuned with your emotions and his emotions. So you then get stuck in a cycle where everyone is stressed in that situation, all three of you, and no one's able to kind of break the pattern to find the way through. I mean, there's a real version of this story where you guys didn't stay on the same track. Like we hear it a lot with couples that it really is make or break, and they'll end up kind of not being able to navigate things together. How have you managed to find the path where you are kind of both affected by it in different ways? And he obviously has a very different bond and a role and a love language with each of you. How on earth have you both managed to go, wow, we've kind of carved a way through on this path?
I think it's
For you, you're far more capable of dealing with him on your own now by putting him into a safe position, and you've properly stepped up with that, I think. And it's shouldn't say it, but it's almost funny now when it happens, and Al has his little moment, and he wants to kick off, and Victoria gets him and holds him until he calms. It's almost humorous to watch because you can see the confusion on the dog's face. Is like, right, okay, what are we doing? Because this is not normal. You should be backing away, and he should be coming for me, and none of that's happening here. And Mum's got hold of me, and she's not letting go, and I can't figure it out. And to me, I taken to just standing there now and watching until it. And it fortunately hasn't kicked off beyond Victoria's control. But I've just taken to standing and watching. I think it's almost funny.
And are you finding that you start to take, because obviously that's part of the pressure and the conditioned relaxation, so we're trying to activate the right kind of sense of that. Is he starting to relax into that and kind of seek that reassurance in you?
I am, well, yeah. I mean, it did get to a point where his growling got me straight into a pretty strong fear response. It's almost like PTSD. The sound of any dog growling was setting me off.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of making myself relax and just be like, right, if you escalate, he'll escalate. So keep chill and just deal with it calmly. He's really good to do, Jesse. It's such a strange scenario to find yourself in, but
I think, I mean, we've been together for a really long time. I mean, 21 years this year, I think.
yeah.
So we thought we knew everything about each other, but Albus has made us do a lot of work on ourselves and looking at how our behavior impacts upon him, and how we interact with each other also affects him. I think having that, the amount of time we've been together, I think was a big help, because we were able to look back on things and kind of correlate past experiences and say, well, when this happened, this is how we dealt with it, and bring a lot of that into how we deal with Al. But there was a lot of, and I don't, one of the things that I don't disagree with, shall we call him the punching trainer, for want of a better description. What I don't disagree with is that there is a lot on you to work on you. It's not all about working on the dog, it's working on you. And for us, John was very much quick to anger whenever Albus would have a problem, and he'd be angry about it. Whereas I had that ability to step back and empathize more with Albus. And we've had to flip that completely. So it's now up to me to be Dragon Lady and say, absolutely not, this is not acceptable. And for John to be the one that's kind of, yeah, okay, right, come on, idiot, come on, get in your bed, right, you can have a chew for getting in your bed and being quiet, right? And it's that flip of personalities with him.
And it's such a change, isn't it, in kind of what your body and your brain wants you to do in that moment, and actually going, right, okay, well, let's look at the dog in front of us. And he is, like, obviously I've spent quite a bit of time with him. He's absolutely not your typical dog. There are lots of layers and lots of complexities to him that definitely needed some problem solving out with even the typical kind of complex dogs that we work with. And so I think that's the bit, is that everyone's looking, all the trainers are looking for this thing that they're going to do to the dog, whereas actually we had so many layers and so much complexity of your relationship and your dynamic and the things that he'd learned along the way. And it's such a skill to be able to then unpick that and go the other way. And so you had Albus, you had the implant that kicked in and made things worse, but then must have then settled. So where are we heading next on that journey?
So the implant settled. We realized that testosterone probably does play a part in his escalations, or his moments, as we call them, moments of madness. So we went ahead with a full castration before the supralorin wore off. So we were in kind of a holding pattern at this point. We knew the R+ wasn't working. We knew that we didn't want to go back to punching trainers. So we Ari was looking around for something that, right, well, what next? What do we do next? And we went through a couple of what I would probably now call balanced trainers, looking back on it, where it was a bit more kind of traditional training, slip leads, going right back to basics, but it still wasn't putting all the jigsaw puzzle pieces together for us. So I then discovered you and Atlas, and I was following along your journey before you met Jess. And when you met Jess and there was that transformative aha moment for you, I saw a hell of a lot, and we've discussed this, in the background, but so many similarities between some of Atlas's behavior and some of the behavior that we were seeing with Albus. And I thought, I wonder if this is the thing. This is what we need to look at, and we need to have a bit of this magic. So that's when I joined Honest Hounds. And because we'd been, want of a better word, burned in the past, we kind of hung around in the background for a long time, watching the residentials, watching how people, seeing some of the success stories, seeing how Atlas was progressing, listening to Jess. We kind of pushed the button last July and came for a behavioural assessment, and then subsequently came on the residential in Yorkshire. And since then, we've gone from strength to strength, really, with Albus, haven't we?
Yeah. After his castration, we sort of had, I don't know, maybe about 3 months where he was adapting to that change in his hormones, and his behaviour was noticeably different. I mean, one of the things that we'd noticed before was he'd started to do a lot of sniffing when he was out walking. He wasn't enjoying his walks because the sniffing out, I'm guessing looking for bitches, was literally overtaking his time out, and you probably get 200 yards, whereas normally you'd walk 2 miles. And that behaviour stopped straight away. And for us, it was like, at least he's going to take some enjoyment in the time he's going outside walking, rather than being frustrated by following his nose all the time. But as Victoria says, there were still these instances every so often creeping in. We weren't managing as hard, but we were still managing his behaviour, and we'd not got back to what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean,
to be the happy life for Albus, which was, that cuddly.
everyone wants a Disney dog, don't they? No one gets a dog to have stress. Everyone gets a dog to have a cuddle on the sofa, enjoy life together, go out walking. And we didn't feel that Albus was enjoying his life. And that's what we wanted for him. So yeah, we wanted to understand we really wanted to understand why, because if we understood the why, or at least the cause and the trigger and some of the root behaviors and the root causes, then we could help him. This wasn't, we didn't go on this journey to have an obedient dog and to beat him into submission. We went on this journey to understand what the problem was so that we could fix the problem so that he enjoyed his life. And that's where a lot of the work that Jess and the approach that Jess takes and that Honest Hounds are taking, that kind of holistic view of look at the dog in front of you and help that dog. I don't really, to a certain extent, I don't really care what his obedience is like, as long as he's happy and enjoying his life and he's safe and we're safe. That to me is the goal. Like, I don't want him to turn tricks. I don't want him to do spins and all kinds of stuff, but I just want a safe dog in a safe household that is enjoying his life. So for us, that kind of look at that dog, look at what that dog's experience is, look at what the problems are, look at it holistically. So not just from a behavioral standpoint of that dog, but how we behave towards him and what his environment is like, what his pain's like, what his nutrition's like. All of these things needed to be tweaked and looked at. So that's where we're currently at, is doing all the things all of the time and tweaking little bits and looking at what we can do to make his life better.
And I guess it was fascinating because you've obviously alluded to the fact that he's great outside the house, and that is great. Like, we obviously met you for the neutral walk tour before you came on the residential, and he's kind of kicking about, perfectly neutral, not bothered by any of the dogs, very much in like the most beautiful off-lead heel that most people would probably die for. But I think that the difference is that we get it, right? We get that there are things, and that you wouldn't be wasting your time on this journey if there were not other bits that needed help. And actually, I think being able to live in the house for the week and have that set up, and obviously the session that we did in your guys' bedroom is so insightful, and it's all those pieces that we go, right, well, let's collect all the bits, and as you say, we're taking the approach, and it's just been absolutely fascinating to kind of see him progress. And every time that I see him through a video or through what you guys are sharing, he genuinely looks like he's getting younger. I'm starting to, like, when we talk about him, we're like, he's the Benjamin Button of the dog world. But it's just the other way. He just looks more youthful, and he's got this kind of puppy energy about him. Do you go? I mean, I'm not as close to him as you are. Do you see the same? Do you feel like he's getting that kind of spring in his step back?
I think so, yeah. I mean, the work to get his weight down has been really good. And he certainly moves a lot better. I mean, he's moving the best he's ever done. We did the massage workshop in Dundee, I think was last year, very late last year. And again, we can see that's had a massive impact, and he looks so happy. Just from a morning's rub down, he seems to value it. And it's great contact time for us. I mean, if that's the only contact time we got with him, it's really good for us, that. But yeah, the happy times when he has a little moment doing his zoomies right on the grass, it's fantastic. That's really nice to see these days.
And tell me a little bit about the barn hunt, because obviously that's been a big factor in breed fulfillment, and you guys are just brilliant. I feel like you're always looking for stuff. He absolutely comes first in your household, and so you guys were kind of coming and going, what's the thing that we can find for him? And I know that you're taking quite the little detour for your round trips to barn hunt. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, he really loves sniffing games. We were hiding treats around the house during COVID and letting him do the finding, and like burying it back of the sofa, and he'd root it out. And then Victoria took it one step further, and she was hiding like items of clothing like a hat or gloves out in the bracken fields near where we live, and letting him go and search for them. And then you saw Constellation was doing the barn hunts. So
yeah,
and
I
Sarah,
debated looking at doing some like scent work with him, but because of his legs, we can't run him for long periods. And a lot of scent work is obviously man trailing, is tracking across long distances. And although he's fine, he doesn't have a problem with his legs. He's not on any pain relief. He's not on any anti-inflammatories. We use certain herbal supplements to kind of give him that bit of extra. What's the converse for inflammation? But it brings the inflammation down. If there is any, and we do quite a lot of water sports with him, so swimming is great for him. But we wanted to give him that breed outlet of retrieving and sniffing things and finding things as he would if he was trained to a gun. So barn hunt is done in a barn, hence the word barn, barn hunt. But it's finding rats which have been hidden in tubes and hidden in hay bales. Not live rats, I should say, ones that have been raised for the reptile feeding industry. And they have to go in and find them under a time limit and work with the handler. So it's not just about letting the dog run rampant, it's about listening to the handler. So saying, please can you find the rat? Please can you jump on this bale? Please can you run through this tunnel? So it's that kind of engagement and working on that relationship with the handler, which we're working really hard to cultivate Albus's relationship, not only with us as a couple, but with both of us independently. So sometimes John will run him in the ring, sometimes I run him in the ring. And he gets out of the car and he's so excited. And Albus is not really a player, never has been interested in play and tug and things like that. But for scent work and for games, he absolutely loves it. His tail's going like mad and his ears are up and he's engaged and it's just lovely to see. But with that, he's also looking to me for guidance or to John for guidance. So, right, I'm here, peeps, but I know what I'm going to do, but I'm waiting for you to cue me in or I'm waiting for you to ask me to do things, which from building that relationship it's just lovely to see. So yeah, he's just got his barn hunt instinct and barn hunt novice titles. So next one is barn hunt open, which is a bit harder, but yeah, we're going to go and do some workshops and work on it with him, get the skills up so that he can go and do that one next.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see all the little bits and the confidence building that comes with it and the partnership that you guys are developing. And so I think it's really easy to think, oh, well, I don't need to do sports like that because I can throw a handful of treats in the grass. But actually, it's the kind of the complexity and the having something to follow is going to absolutely up level your relationship as well. And it almost gives purpose to the confidence building and the other bits that you're doing because it will pay off then in the ring, which is just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we go out on walks with him and he looks bored. Yeah, potters along behind us and he's like, oh God, just a walk. Is that all I'm doing? Right, okay. So we've taken like 10 tennis balls with us on a walk, and most of the walks where we are circular. So on the way out, we throw tennis balls and hide them. And then on the way back, we ask him to find them. So it's something that he then looks forward to at the end of the walk, is to finding these tennis balls. As much as it's staving off Alzheimer's for us, because I have to remember where I've thrown 10 tennis balls, which we have known to come back with 8 or 7 or 9. And
if Al's having a particular good day, he'll come back with 12, and you'll wonder whose tennis balls has he nicked.
Yeah, he does have a penchant where he's walking along, and because we've taught him this skill of sniffing tennis balls, he'll just dive off into the brush and then emerges with a tennis ball. So not only is he a rat-seeking missile, he's a tennis ball-seeking missile on walks, which is it's great for him because it activates his brain. So he's not just plodding along.
It was a prize, doesn't it?
Yeah, he likes to come back with a prize.
Well, I hope there's never anyone following behind on your walks with a dog that also likes tennis balls, or he's going to come back with none and be like, what the heck?
Yeah, we do have quite a lot of dog walkers near us, which is why it's so important for him to be social. I mean, we always say he's not a dog, he's a person dog. He'd rather greet people than greet dogs. But that still doesn't mean that he shouldn't work on the kind of social stuff. So the tennis balls are quite useful because if he's got a tennis ball in his mouth, he's really not bothered about other dogs. He'll just walk straight past. Because he's always bothered about is us really, which is nice in some ways, but yeah, off-lead dogs are constantly a problem where we are, so that's another reason why we want him to be social.
And I just think it's such a testament to the kind of complete picture that you guys have got to, right? You've got a dog that you're understanding better, you're speaking his language, you've managed to kind of have this personal growth yourselves and be able to get through the other side of it. And that's not to say that every day is perfect, it isn't for anyone, but I think being able to see your confidence in handling those situations and navigating things, I think there's a lot of empowerment in knowing that there's a plan, even if the things that are being thrown at us are a little bit different. So you've obviously had this crazy journey which you've walked us through, and I think there's going to be people listening who are going to relate to so many aspects of it, and the trainer fatigue, the overwhelm, the stress of the kind of dynamic of the relationship. So I guess if you were able to give them some advice or reflect on where you are now from where you've come, what is it that really sticks with you the most for those people that aren't quite as far on yet?
I'll let you go first. Or do you want me to go?
I'll let you go.
I think hope is one of the big things for me, because I'm quite a driven person anyway, and I'm quite willing to put the work in. That doesn't bother me. But knowing what work is right is very, very difficult. There is a demonization of dog training happening, and if you are not part of the cookie kind of sweetness and light community, you are the devil incarnate. And for me, the piece of advice I would say is focus on your dog, focus on what your dog needs, and help them to achieve that. Because, you know, it's all very well and good saying don't stress a dog out, don't put a dog in a difficult situation. That's not life. You can't protect everyone from anything happening at any time, and you have to be realistic. And if that means, you know, making your dog walk across, for example, one of Albus's big things is he hates slippy floors because of what he's been through with his surgery, and I think he's got, you know, some nervousness around walking on surfaces that are difficult for him. If I then said to Albus, well, it's okay, you don't need to walk on a slippy floor for the rest of your life, that's great, but that's not reality. If I need to get him into a vet's, or I want him to walk across the floor with me, I have been that person that has picked my dog up and carried a 30-kilo Labrador across a restaurant to sit outside because he won't walk across the floor. It doesn't work. You have to put them in a bit of discomfort to show them that the world isn't such a scary place, and there is hope at the end of that. If you're not being a cruel person by saying, I'm going to show you that this thing is okay. You're being very, very kind. You are helping them through life by showing them that not everything is scary. You are giving them hope that they don't need to be scared of everything. And that in turn gives you hope that you don't then have to live a life which is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The help is out there. You're not the spawn of Satan because you want the best for your dog. Honest. You know, to me, it's finding the thing that works for your dog, and not being blinkered to one particular way of doing things. Try new things, try new approaches, speak to new people, get advice on how other people have done things, and see what works for you and your dog. Don't just assume that because someone said that it hasn't worked for them that it won't work for you. If that had been the case with Albus, our world would still be very, very small. We wouldn't be able to take him out. We wouldn't be able to walk him through shops. We wouldn't be able to go on camping adventures and holidays like we have done. And that would be really sad, not only for us, but for him.
John, you've got a tough gig to beat that, dude.
I do.
Just first.
Sorry, slight soapbox.
Well, I think first bit of advice I would have liked to have heard right back at the beginning of this is that you're not on a linear path, and good days will be followed by bad days, but that doesn't mean that you're going back to bad times. And you really got to have patience and like you said a little bit earlier on, a bit of hope and a bit of faith that even the smallest of steps one day, yeah, you might take a few back the next, but you just keep plodding along. And eventually you start to see the good, the positives, the changes, and just keeping hope and not being downhearted by this assumption that progress has got to be linear. It really doesn't.
And we actually look forward to instances where Albus has balked at something or said no to something or, had a bark at a dog or had a growl at us from his crate, because we see that as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to put another piece of the puzzle and think about, oh, okay, so he's done that. Right, well, he was out for 12 hours yesterday and he didn't get enough rest, and that's why he's being grumpy. Fine, okay. And we understand him more. So it's an opportunity to understand rather than a setback or a bad day. It's a learning opportunity.
And definitely in the early times when all this first started, we weren't smart enough to recognise that we were just seeing this gentle decline rather than seeing that, good days will be followed by bad. It's just how it's going to go. The other thing I'd say is, again, right back early doors when all this started, the world felt very lonely for me. Because it was kind of like, I've got a problematic dog, and that's not normal, and society will judge me for it because I have a dog that's reactive, and I tell people my dog is aggressive towards me, and I'll be judged for it because I've clearly done something wrong in raising this puppy up to being a dog that has led to this behaviour. And it took a long time for me to realise and to accept there are a lot of people out there in exactly the same circumstance as we were facing ourselves being in, and it was through no fault of their own either. And when you start to talk to people and you start to open up about all this, the world becomes a less lonely place. Where it's a difficult one. Again, it's a really difficult one to start to appreciate. And I mean, there were times when Victoria and I were at loggerheads with each other, and you really do feel alone then, in that you've got no one that you can talk to. To just say, this is all really getting me down, and I don't know what to do. What can we do? Talking is a very important way of just appreciating the world's not coming to an end. There is a way forward. Even just on the residential, one of the questions that came up was am I going to get my dog taken off me because he's got aggression towards other dogs? And it was amazing that everyone else had that same worry, and nobody had been able to get that reassurance that nobody's going to come and just take your dog away because it might have snapped at another dog out walking. And it was such a relief, both knowing that worry is totally unfounded, but it wasn't just me that were worrying about it either. It's
I think it's so
the
important.
world of dog owners worrying about what the dogs are doing.
Those sleepless nights and those worries. I think you're so right, and I really appreciate you kind of taking the time to share that, because we certainly have more women than men on the community. It just seems to have gone that way. But I think there's a lot of overwhelm, and there's a lot of that. And I think guys in particular don't always have the people that they can bring it up with and navigate that, or necessarily the emotions to describe and go through it. So I think it's such an important point, and that is why we're building the community, both obviously online, and then obviously you guys do wonders with your neutral walks and all the other events that go on, because we need that space to go, oh, you know what? I know it sounded silly in my own head, but can I just voice this? Or has anyone else ever thought about this crazy thing? Like, the spirals I used to send myself into is just wild. But actually, if you say it out loud and everyone else goes, well, no, but I've definitely thought that too. It's suddenly like, oh, okay, good. It's nice to feel that problem shared as a problem halved is so relatable. So yeah, you're absolutely spot on.
I think one of the things that we love about doing neutral walks is because there are two of us, and we've got one of each gender. It's there's always someone who you can talk to. So if women feel more comfortable talking to women, then that I'm there to have a chat. And sometimes you get we've actually got quite good representation of genders on our walks, but John will find kind of guys asking questions that are very different to the kinds of questions that I get. So having that kind of double act on walks is really good. And then inevitably, because we've only got one dog between two of us, someone can do there's an off-lead dog. No, it's okay, he's friendly. Kind of intercept of dogs coming into the pack, which let's face it, there's always one on every walk where we get can you put your dog on a lead? Oh, he's friendly. Great, thanks very much.
Nice story. Still put it on the lead.
I think there's such power in surviving that as a group, though, because when you do it on your own and you get into those altercations, or people ignore you, or there'll be a moment, like that would go on and absolutely ruin my entire walk, if not my entire day. Whereas when you've got your body blocker and someone being able to laugh it off or crack a joke about it, as humans, we're able to go, okay, that wasn't the end of the world. We can recover so much quicker. And it's so lovely that, especially with the two of you and the dynamic of that, so nice to be able to bring everyone back online as well so much quicker.
Yeah, we find that a couple of the comments that we've had on our neutral walks is, oh, it's so nice having someone to head off or do the explaining for me, that you don't, you're working hard enough bringing your dog to the walks and trying to work on them as an individual. You shouldn't have to spend that time explaining why your dog's wearing a muzzle, or why they need space, or why they've got a lanyard on that says anxious or nervous, or whatever tools you've chosen to use. If you've got someone that just says, yeah, sorry, we're doing a training session, can you just create some space for us? That's great, thanks very much. It takes the weight off them so that they can then focus on their dog. And I think we've had some really nice feedback about that, haven't we? Where people have said, oh God, can you come on every walk with me?
I need to get you some little lollipop people signs and just be like, go.
Yeah.
Okay, I always like to end the podcast with a quick fire round. So there's two of you, so you both get to answer. I think you'll both have different answers, I'm sure. I will throw a question at you and you can tag team in whichever order comes naturally. So my first question is, your favourite thing about Albus?
It's got to be his little face. It is probably the cutest dog I've ever seen. It's gonna be.
I would say is back, which is very weirdly specific, but his back feet.
Okay.
He's got tiny back feet that he tucks up, and he like almost points his feet, when he's laid down. They're just, for me, they're just sweet. If you're talking about characteristics, I'd just say, he's very sweet. For a dog that we've just said, has people aggression issues, he is a sweet boy. He does come across as very a lot younger than his years. And he is that kind of, he can be very sweet in amongst all the chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, his favourite thing to do?
Or ball his life. And a tennis ball of any description. Finding it, carrying it, throwing it. Yeah, I would say anything to do with the ball.
I'd agree with that. No doubt. Ball games. Ball is life. Once he's got a ball in his mouth, he's happy.
Yeah.
Okay, your favourite training items. There's going to be anything that helps you on your journey.
Well, apart from, he's a Labrador, so food.
Treat pouch.
The treat pouch. or what we call primula cheese, but is actually primula cheese. Yeah, squeezy cheese.
No, it's definitely treat pouch is the number one. We've got Al barking on command now, and it took sort of just a couple of afternoons with some of his favourite treats, and that was it. So
Love that.
it's the most effective without a doubt.
Okay, so my next one is there are lots of great superheroes. We've got invisibility, we've got being able to fly, we've got time machines. As a dog owner, what would be your dog owner superpower?
Being able to hear what they think, to read minds.
Okay, and yours as it is with something that you actually have now. So I'm talking, what is it that makes you stand out as a dog owner for Albus?
I would say it's my patience.
Yeah.
We've been through such a journey with him, and my resilience / patience to be able to just pick myself back up and do it again and again and again and again, I think is mine, I think.
I'm gonna go with Captain Fun because I'm trying as much as possible to get fun times with him. Certainly after the residential, it's what can I do that I can get engagement with my dog that is going to enjoy it. So
That's very cool. Okay, and my last question is one thing you wish you'd known from day one.
get a cat instead.
End episode.
The cheat.
It's not a phase. It never is a phase. You need to understand and help and work through something. You can't just ignore it and think it'll go away on its own. I think we lost a lot of time by being in a holding pattern and thinking, well, we'll see what changes. Grasp the nettle for me and just do it.
Remain positive at all times. Even though they will get you down, there will always be better times to come.
Amazing. Guys, thank you so much for sharing so openly and honestly. It's such a tale of a really layered journey, but he couldn't have found better humans to help him on his way. So you are pretty awesome, both of you. Thanks so much.
It'd have been screwed if he'd gone to a working lad. If he'd gone to a working household, it would have been screwed. No, thanks for having us, Jessie. And if anyone wants to chat, we're always around on the Honest Hounds forum for a natter.
Good old chinwag and a cup of tea.